Breaking the silence, breaking the cycle. This is episode 7 of the Domestic Abuse Project podcast, on location at the 2016 Transforming Families DAP Luncheon. Hello and welcome to the Domestic Abuse Project podcast. We are here on location at the Earl Brown Heritage Center at the annual Transforming Families Domestic Abuse Project Luncheon, and I'm here with Anna Zaros, Director of Development and Communications, as always. Hi, Anna.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really excited because it's finally here. It's finally here. I can stop asking you how planning is going because it's finally here. So how's the day been going so far? It looks like the reception just began. People have just started arriving. How's it been going so far?
Yeah, it's great. We've gotten set up ahead of time, and we practiced. All of our speeches got practiced, and everyone's just really excited to share our story today.
And so for people that have never been to the luncheon, I guess this is one day a year, right? But how important is this one day to the work that Domestic Abuse Project does throughout the year?
Yeah, so this is our largest fundraiser every year. So it's the way that we can raise the most funds for our clients. About a quarter of our budget is from individual donors. It's us. It's you and me supporting the work of Domestic Abuse Project and ending the cycle of violence. This year we have a $500,000 funding gap, so that's what we need to raise after all the government contracts and grants that we get. That's what we have left to raise to serve all the families who come to our door who need to find healing. And this event is the single most important way that we do that. We're so lucky to be supported by all different folks in our community. So usually we have lots of judges and city council, commissioners, the Civil Rights Division from the city comes every year. This year we're lucky enough to have Congressman Keith Ellsion share some words of support. But besides that, we just have folks who really care about ending domestic abuse. A lot of people have been impacted by it themselves and are here because they know how important it is to end abuse in our community. Our big platinum level sponsors are Gufsus and Glick and Guardhouse. And then our gold level sponsor is Wells Fargo, and then a handful of others too that you can all find on our website. So lots of business support too for the work that we're doing here.
We're actually going to run around and maybe talk to some people and find out their particular reasons for being here, and we'll check back in with you in just a little bit.
Great, have fun.
Lucy Rosario.
And Lucy, people should already be familiar with you if they listened to the last episode. What was the episode that we did?
Compelling reasons women stay.
How's the vibe in here so far for people that aren't here and like to kind of know what the energy is like here?
I think I'm pretty excited. People are just starting to show up for the pre-luncheon reception, and so we're having more people come in. People are chatting. We've got a lot of great information up about our different programs, and so I think it's a pretty kind of upbeat, excited vibe right now.
How important is the Transforming Families Luncheon to the work that Domestic Abuse Project does?
Oh, well, it's huge. I mean, first off, it's our biggest fundraising event of the year, and since we don't take insurance, without this luncheon, we couldn't do the work that we're doing to stop domestic violence. But then on top of it, it's huge for building awareness, and one thing we talked about a lot in the last podcast was how important it is for people to be more aware of domestic abuse and how complex it is, and that's like a key part of being able to end domestic violence.
And what would you kind of tell people about the Domestic Abuse Project or just finding out about it?
Well, I think first off, we provide services for the whole family, which is pretty unique. So we provide services for men, women, children. We have advocacy and case management services, as well as really work hard on doing a lot of community outreach and education. So we really have a holistic approach to trying to end domestic violence in the Twin Cities.
I'm Leah Martin. I'm a part of the men's program and a part of the children's program at DAP. Yeah, I think this is always a super exciting event. People like to come and hear about all the work we do, and for us it's great to be able to see the people that actually support us and are with us in the work that we do. We get to kind of feel the bigger picture of the work that we do every day. So it's really exciting for us and really meaningful that all these people will come out and support us.
Mandy Meisner.
And Sherry Davis.
Honestly, the reason that I'm here today was a personal invitation. Sherry here invited me. She knows that I have a heart for domestic violence, and so that's really why I'm here. I was invited, but the topic I think is not only important, but it's prevalent. So I'm here to learn more about this specific agency, but also anything that I can do as a citizen of the community.
And my name's Sherry Davis, and my daughter Miranda is one of the counselors at DAP. And so she invited me, and I think it's so important the way they treat the entire family, and so I just wanted to come and support. This is my mother-in-law.
I'm Virginia Davis. I pledged last year to make a 5-year commitment for $1,000 each year, and I strongly support this organization, and I especially do because my granddaughter, Miranda Davis, is a counselor for the organization. So I'm glad to be here. This is my 4th year to come. Well, I was a high school English and reading teacher in the St. Anthony Village and Osseo School District for 22 years. And I worked with students who had been abused and with their families. And so I know firsthand how destructive it is. Thank you very much.
Carrie Crockford. I'm the men's program supervisor at DAP. Well, we have 2 components to the men's programming. There's a mainstream program that addresses the needs of the community by way of court-ordered guys coming in. And so we're looking at perpetration behaviors. We also have the Change Step program, which is also looking at perpetration behaviors, but it is specific and was developed for our veteran community, active or retired vets, who have been experiencing domestic violence in their homes as well and acting as perpetrators. So the metaphor that I use is dropping a pebble into a pond, and all of the other programs at DAP deal with the ripples that come out from dropping that pebble in the pond, and the men's program addresses the issues with the pebble. We're the source, we go right to the source of the issue, and we're going to be looking at what's underneath the perpetration behaviors, because typically what we find is that there's a significant number of guys who have either earlier childhood traumas or have been in abusive families of their own, or have significant mental health or chemical health issues, or just stability life issues that are getting in the way of them being able to head healthy households.
I know as the podcast has sort of gone on, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of staff members, and one thing that I've noticed that they've all got in common is that they're all very passionate about this. That they're all very committed to the work that the Domestic Abuse Project is doing. So, what is it to you specifically that keeps you motivated and keeps you so dedicated to this work?
Well, I love the work, but my answer to that question is always the same. This isn't something that you go out and decide you're going to do the work in this field. This work comes to you, and I started as an intern 6 years ago here, and I couldn't leave. I had to do the work. It's so challenging. It's so rewarding. It's just something that you really get to put your hands into a lot of the pieces, and DAP does a wonderful job of allowing innovative work as well, so you get to be creative in your thinking of healing, and that's pretty powerful stuff.
Robin McPherson. I've actually only been with the board since January of this year, and I really feel that this group has a lot to offer the community and has been helping people for many, many years. I think it's a service that's much needed in Minneapolis and the surrounding area, so I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far. I think that the energy level has been great here, and I think that one of the things is all the people who are working and involved in DAP are very passionate about what they do and very passionate about helping people, and it shows. It shows in everything they do. They care, and they're excellent at their jobs and what they do.
Rhonda Hunt, I'm an advocate. LaCandace Neal, I'm also an advocate. So I am over the advocacy table. We just have some information out here kind of about what advocacy does. One of our main points that I'm kind of trying to point out is a poster about the criminal justice system, because one of the things that we do for advocacy is we attend court for the misdemeanor domestic cases, and we track what happens throughout that process so that we can notify the victim of what is occurring. And so we also have some information out kind of about orders for protection, which is another point that we do, and just some resources and information that we give our clients when we're seeing them in advocacy because they're in that crisis moment. So another piece of information that we have out here is just what resources they should have together, getting important documents, IDs, social security cards, clothing, formula, baby food, just kind of some ideas of what we would tell a client of ours who is in that crisis moment to gather for themselves in the case that they need to flee.
So I actually recently just started about a month ago, so I'm really new. I am primarily in the Native American community because I'm a Native American woman, and so we actually help people who are involved in domestic violence situations. They come to Domestic Abuse Project and they're looking for services, and so we help them obtain order for protections, and we're there as a support to help them through the court process system.
And for people that aren't familiar with the Domestic Abuse Project, maybe they're just checking out this episode of the podcast for the first time, what are maybe one or two things that you can tell folks about the Domestic Abuse Project that they might not know?
I think just the Domestic Abuse Project is here to help the whole family. We serve the entire family. We have programs for men, women, and children. So we're trying to help everyone out as a whole. We're not just focused on one group. We're here to serve everyone.
Domestic Abuse Project podcast. We are on location at the Transforming Families Domestic Abuse Project annual DAP Luncheon. And just walking around the reception area, it is packed. It is jumping in here. It's loud, and people are really excited to be here supporting the work of the Domestic Abuse Project. And I ran across one of our speakers for the event today.
Hi, I'm Armani Cartledge. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, but I live in Hopkins, Minnesota. I'm going to be welcoming and also closing the event out today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about how my experience was in the program when I was 4 and how it just helped me and my family, and how the program just needs to be around to help others and people who go through different things like this in our community. I think when I came in, I was very hesitant to connect with the men's program just because of my own experience. But when I saw how things actually did change and how these men are able to see the things that have happened, see the harm they've done, and be able to work to change themselves so that they can make their lives better, their families' lives better, it's just amazing.
I'm Nick Beissel.
And I'm Shelly Beissel, and we have the organization Love Conquers Violence, and we had our big event in August in honor of my sister-in-law, Nick's sister, Bags and Beers for Nat, where we raised over $20,000 for the Domestic Abuse Project.
You know, we came here for the first time last year, and I was blown away by what a great organization DAP was, and wanted to continue coming now and make it an annual event.
We really believe in what DAP does, and we want to help end domestic violence and start having conversations about domestic violence because it's happening all the time, and this violence needs to stop.
And so what's the energy like here for people that couldn't make it to the luncheon day? I mean, how excited are people to be here supporting the work of Domestic Abuse Project?
Well, you can probably tell by how loud it is here. I can barely hear you. There's so many people, but I see a lot of smiles on people, a lot of energy here, and people are happy to be here.
This is awesome. I think when we talked to Anna, she said that there's going to be over 600 people here. That's amazing. 600 people is amazing, and this it's going to be a great event.
Well, thank you very much. And how can people find out more about your organization, Love Conquers Violence?
They can go to www.loveconquersviolence.com, or they can go to Facebook, Love Conquers Violence.
Walking around the banquet hall here, and ran across one of our table captains. And can you introduce yourself, please? Let folks know where you're from and how you got involved with that.
Sure. My name is Catherine Baumstead-Plotnick. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Prosper Well Financial, and we've partnered with the Domestic Abuse Project in a lot of different capacities over the past few years, and have just always kind of liked to be a part of their different functions and be able to support them. I think domestic violence is just something that we feel very strongly. We have had people, a lot of our clients who have been affected by it, and it just is, a really good cause to support because it does affect so many different people.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for being a table captain. I'll let you get back to the event.
Thank you.
My name is Martha Ginder. I got involved with the Domestic Abuse Project late last year. One of the people I work with at Piper Jaffray had referred them to me, and I got involved first by volunteering with the development committee, and then a board position opened up, and so I applied, and I've been a board member since the beginning of this year. I've really enjoyed getting to know more about the work that they're doing. I think it's very unique and beneficial to both our community and preventative as well. So I'm excited to continue working with them, and I'm excited to be here today.
And what's the energy like here today for people that couldn't make it to the event and are maybe just listening to the podcast later? How excited are people to be supporting the work of Domestic Abuse Project today?
There's a lot of buzz here today. This is my first luncheon, and I'm very surprised at the turnout. I think we have a great turnout. People seem really excited to be here. There's a lot of reoccurring people here who have come multiple years, and it's great to have a lot of people from the community coming here to talk and to support our cause. And people are, just really excited to be part of this.
If it was June or July or even August, I'd come here and I'd have a certain kind of a message, but it is 27 days before an election. So I have to tell you that elections do matter for domestic violence victims. Who's in office, the passion that they bring, the priorities that they have are absolutely critical. And I'm telling you that this is tough stuff, But if you all are committed to this issue, as I know that you are, we can emerge from it stronger and better and much safer. Thank you all for the work that you're doing. Again, I stand and pledge myself to your work, and you can count on me in whatever you're doing, because I believe that the home should be a safe place for all. Thank you all.
Domestic Abuse Project podcast. We are on location at the annual DAP Luncheon. I'm here with Congressman Keith Ellsion. And sir, we talk a lot about in the podcast about how domestic abuse affects people from all walks of life, all religions, all communities, all political stripes, for example. You're well known in the community here for reaching out to the entire community and each of the smaller individual communities that you represent. In working with so many diverse communities in the Twin Cities, would you say that domestic abuse is indeed an epidemic that affects all of us?
Yeah, domestic abuse touches every home, touches everyone. And even for people who have not had a case of domestic violence in their own home, the fact that the people in your neighborhood have it affects you, because your children may go to homes where that's a problem, and children in who go to the school your children go to may be carrying some of the effects of it. And you really cannot isolate yourself. All of us need to step up and address domestic violence. And of course, the truth is many of us have seen domestic violence in our home and domestic abuse in our home. And it's important to mention that domestic violence is not just hitting. I mean, horrible language, scary things for kids. You know, children tend to absorb all of that and take it very personally. They may think they're the cause of it. So, I think it's a community problem, and it calls for a community solution, and DAP is at the forefront of it all. There's a lot of great things Domestic Abuse Project does. Advocacy with children, advocacy obviously with women is very important, taking a holistic approach. But I am very, very impressed by their effort to address men who have been involved in domestic violence. And I think this is really important because, you know, as much as we might want to be angry at men who commit acts of domestic violence, the truth is many of them are going back into the homes where it happened. So if you don't do something with them to help them see their behavior as being really toxic and dangerous, then you're not really solving the problem. So Domestic Abuse Project says, look, we're not just going to sit up here and judge you and condemn your behavior. We're going to actually help you be a better person. Be a better father, be a better husband, be a better partner, be a better person all around. And I think this is absolutely essential. You know, there's a young man who came up there named Brian, and boy, did he ever demonstrate some courage. I was really moved by what he had to say. He took responsibility, and he apologized in a deep, profound way to his loved one. And I think that I could just see on his face that he has made the lives of himself and his family members better because of his contact with Domestic Abuse Project.
Thank you. And then, so in your presentation that you gave here at the luncheon, you said you feel strongly that the home should be a safe place. You said people should feel safe in their communities and should feel safe calling the police when necessary. Yeah. You also said that our elected officials and the people we put in charge of the well-being of our communities truly does make a difference. Oh, yeah. Why is it so important for people to be involved in the process?
Well, like if anybody is thinking that what can I do? Well, you can donate to DAP. But you can also look at the candidates who are running and ask yourself, who among them is standing up to oppose domestic violence? Who among them has an agenda that is going to lead to safer homes? And vote that way. Vote your values. Don't just come here and donate, although we need you to do that. But also, you know, vote into office people who are pledging to vote for the Violence Against Women Act, to vote to make sure we have sane, sensible gun laws, to vote that for women who live on tribal communities or who may be immigrants have the protections they need to be free of domestic violence, and just folks can be free of domestic violence in general. So I'd say that this is a moment when we can step up. So this is a time to step up, be counted, and be part of your democracy in a way that can protect people.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
I've been executive director of Domestic Abuse Project for almost 2 years now, and I am truly humbled by what I've watched unfold. The work we do together, you with your financial investments, and DAP with our skilled staff, we save lives. We transform families. let me give you a nugget of hope, of pride, and let me do for you what I do for our staff on a regular basis, because they're tired some days. They're overwhelmed, they're in tears. How domestic violence will end is by thinking outside of the box, by changing systems. It is our innovations that make it possible for thousands of women and children to heal. We innovate because it changes lives. That's where your investment goes, to innovation, to programs that work. We're able to do good work right now. But when we close our funding gap, imagine the impact we will make. I'll return to the office tomorrow morning and tell our staff today is a good day, because I know that each and every one of you has our back. Each and every one of you is going to do what it takes to end domestic abuse. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Klein. I'm the executive director, and I've been with the agency for almost 2 years now.
So we've talked on the podcast about the various programs that the Domestic Abuse Project provides to the community. Maybe something that people don't really hear as much about are the children's programs. And you spoke in your presentation about how violence in the home can affect children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I talked about was expanding our program Birth to 3, because there's a lot of really profound research that's coming out about the impact of trauma, of traumatic experiences on fetuses. And so we think oftentimes that babies, they're babies and they don't recognize what's happening, and they're safe or protected from the violence that is occurring in the household. Yet what we're learning is that they're internalizing a lot of that trauma, and it can be the effect can be more profound on babies, infants, fetuses than it is on older children. And so this is a really important step in the expansion of our program to get to younger children. One of the things that Sarah Lockhart always consistently has said, because she's advocated for this expansion for years, is that if I had seen this child a couple years ago, I wouldn't be seeing them now, and their coping mechanisms would be really different, and their outcomes would be really different. And so it is important to get us to kids earlier and work on that prevention. We also know that what the research shows is that kids that have been exposed to violence as child witnesses are more likely as adults to become either victims or perpetrators. So we want to get to them earlier. We want to get them into our therapy programs so that they can heal. First of all, to know that it's not their fault, but also to learn different patterns of behavior and coping mechanisms.
In your presentation, you also said that one of the things that Domestic Abuse Project does is thinks out of the box, right? And that's another reason that people can feel good about supporting the work of the Domestic Abuse Project. And it sounds like that's one of the ways that the Domestic Abuse Project has been doing that, by expanding the scope of their children's program, so people can feel good knowing that Domestic Abuse Project is always innovating and trying to find ways to make the most of the contributions that people donate, right?
Absolutely. I think, again, when you think about the holistic approach to ending violence against women, we have to get to all the members of the family, because they're all affected in really different ways. And so that is what makes DAP unique. It is innovative in our services, and it's something that's just not talked about a lot. We talk about serving women, survivors, and victims, and the importance of that, but you also have to identify the needs of children and men that are involved in that relationship as well.
So you also talked about in your presentation about the profound impact that violence has on the staff members here at DAP2, which was something that I don't think a lot of people probably expected you to talk about. I mean, that's I'm sure a lot of people appreciate you being so candid and letting people know about how violence in the community affects the staff members. You said that they're often tired, overwhelmed, in tears, and these are all things that your staff deals with. What is it? I mean, what is it that inspires and inspires your staff and keeps them motivated to keep pushing forward and fighting this fight?
I think it's knowing that there's hope, that we see the results of the work that we do with families every single day. We see them heal from the traumatic experiences of violence. We see them leaving our program, going back into their communities and feeling good about entering into new relationships, entering into their schools and into their community and doing really positive things. And I think that's really important. That's what holds us every single day, that we know that we're making a difference. And we hear that from our clients all of the time. And so, when we hear about tragedies, when we're in the middle of this work, that's really hard. We know that at the end of the road, there's a positive outcome.
And then last question here too. You said also during your presentation that you can't possibly thank everyone individually. That you've got so much support here and so many people making their financial contributions, and you made an effort to thank everyone for their individual contributions. Now, what else would you like to say to all of the other people who make contributions in other ways? I know we talked to the Bags and Beers Fanat event. There's 100 different ways that you can contribute to the effort, right? So what would you like to say to all of the volunteers and all of the people that also contribute in different ways in addition to financially?
We could not do our work without the incredible impact of volunteers and people that are advocating for this work out in the community. And we're just incredibly grateful that we have folks that continue to support this work in really meaningful ways. It's not just a financial resource that's important to us, but it's also people. People make a difference every single day, and we're incredibly grateful for that.
Hi, I'm Assistant Chief Chris Arneson with the Minneapolis Police Department. A few years ago, we looked at our violent crime hotspots and the crimes that were occurring in those hotspots, and the top 5 crimes in those hotspots were domestic violence. And so one of the things, as we did a deeper dive into those calls, we realized that there were a certain high percentage that by the time officers arrived, no one answered the door. And so in working with the city attorney's office, we devised this program and asked DAP to join us, where we had specifically trained officers who actually worked the north side. And this was specifically at that time the north side of Minneapolis. So the officer and the DAP professional teamed up and went to those homes where we had no police response. In other words, someone didn't answer the door or they were gone. Whatever the issue was, there was no connection with the officer at the scene. And so, as you know, then no police report is made. And the goal is to make sure that people have services that they need. So whatever it is, that officer and that advocate try to point that person in the right direction so they can get the help they need.
Thank you. And so for the podcast, the Domestic Abuse Project podcast, we were speaking before we started recording. We just started it this year on iTunes. So we had some bracelets made, some of those silicone bracelets made. They say, break the silence, break the cycle. And we talk about a lot about how people not talking about domestic abuse is probably one of the bigger issues around it. So I guess for people that maybe are witnessing domestic abuse, maybe in their communities, in their neighborhoods, maybe in their buildings, right? And I think a lot of times people are maybe hesitant to reach out to the authorities. What would you say to people that might be experiencing something and are considering reaching out to authorities?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I think that's really important because we all see things in our daily life that make us stop and want to help or intervene, but we don't for a number of reasons, and that's okay. If it's an ongoing issue where you're seeing someone being abused or hurt right now, you really should call 911. That's totally appropriate. You can remain anonymous. But beyond that, if you suspect something else is going on, it's more long-term, it's more subversive, you're not really sure, I would advocate calling DAP. And DAP can take that phone call and help you understand potentially what's going on, but also even do a follow-up. I mean, it might not be appropriate for DAP to do the follow-up, but maybe it's a call to the police department, maybe it's a call to the Minneapolis Health Department, something so that it gets on our radar that there's a person there who potentially might need help.
Well, thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, you too. Thanks very much.
Your investment today will fill someone's world with hope for a better tomorrow, for a tomorrow free of abuse. We truly appreciate whatever level of support you can provide. On behalf of the women, children, and men, the families that we serve, thank you for giving the gift of your time today. You represent the best of what our community has to offer. And I want to personally wish you 100-fold blessings. Thank you. Tim Gluzak. I'm currently chair of the board, and I had the opportunity to do the ask at the event, so I shared a little bit about my own personal story in relation to domestic abuse, and then was able to share a piece about if we give 10 times of what we think we can give, we can receive 100-fold blessings back. So my key message to everybody was, back in my own life, I would go to these charity events and only want to give a certain amount of money. But I was pushed at times to give more than that, and I finally got to the point of giving 10 times of what I thought I could give and received 100-fold blessings back. DAP's $1.7 million budget is funded by individuals at about 25% of the budget, so not from the government, not from other agencies, but from individuals. And that's about $500,000 is what comes from individuals, and it's the programming that's amazing. DAP is one of the unique agencies where they use therapeutic programming, and it's not just helping people, the victim in crisis, but it is to stop the violence by helping the perpetrator to end violence. And DAP's programming, doing a therapeutic model, results in over 90+% of the perpetrators of ending violence in their relationships. So it's therapy also for the children, who are the innocent witnesses, and for the victims. They also do therapy with victims, but it really is the therapeutic programming with the perpetrators that I see as one of the greatest ways to end this cycle.
My name is Ronnie Alshon. I'm representing Prince Hall Freemasons. I lost my younger sister 3 years ago to domestic abuse, and she's no longer with us, and I've been coming to these events to contribute and learn more about domestic violence. Well, these fundraisers help a lot of people get the help that they need to get through domestic violence, as well as support the families, as well as other people in the community.
I'm Sean Fields. I kind of do a lot of different things in the organization. I supervise our clinical internship program. I work with child witnesses of domestic violence. I work with male perpetrators of domestic violence, specifically within our Change Step program that works with men who have served in the military that have also used abusive behaviors in their relationships. And then I also work within the women's program, specifically within our finances and abuse curriculum, so helping women victim survivors overcome the impact of economic abuse.
So for people that have been listening to the podcast, you are actually scheduled to be on a future episode here. So we're going to talk more in depth about some of the programs that you're involved with. I think one of the programs that makes DAP more unique that I think people would probably like to know more about would probably be the Change Step program, right? So it's pretty unique. So what can you tell people about the Change Step program that makes it so unique?
So it really takes, individuals that have served in the military. It really kind of takes a perspective that the military is a unique culture. And within that culture, it's addressing specific needs that are reflected within that culture. And so some of the exciting things that have happened with this program, that it's been adopted Air Force-wide, so Air Force Family Advocacy Program, and they have family advocacy programs on most Air Force installations, and so all over the world, the Change Step model that DAP created is being implemented. And recently, the Marine Corps has taken interest, and in fact, just this July, we were out at Camp Pendleton, which is the largest Marine Corps base, and we trained 33 of their family advocacy program providers in the Change Step model.
You know, I've been talking to other staff members and just kind of asking them kind of what it is that keeps them inspired and keeps them motivated in the work that they're doing. And I guess I would assume that when something that DAP has created sort of takes off on a large scale, it's those kinds of things that keep you motivated to keep doing the work that you're doing, right?
I mean, it's things like that, but it's often the little moments, the little successes, the actual client moments where, working with a child and after, months, in some cases years of working with that child, to get reports from parents at how much they've improved and how much they've gotten better, or just, other moments, working with perpetrators of domestic violence where that light bulb finally goes off and it dawns on them like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And then they're able to finally take those steps where they're able to change behaviors and make, changes that impact, their families and keeps more people safe.
So as I mentioned, you're going to be on a future episode here talking more in depth about the work that you do. So the whole idea of the podcast really is to bring up things that people don't really talk about as much. How important is it, do you think, to just create awareness by talking about domestic violence more than we do?
So, that's huge because domestic violence as an issue lives and breathes in the shadows. And until something like domestic violence is talked about, and just more open and more just, becomes a greater issue in dialogue in public sectors and, in private sectors as well, that's going to be one of the big first steps in helping end just the epidemic that is domestic violence. So talking about it is huge, and just talking about it, that in and of itself takes away a lot of the fuel that gets funneled into domestic violence.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Sounds great.
I'm back here with Anna Zaros, Director of Development and Communications of the Domestic Abuse Project. What are some ways that people can get involved with the Domestic Abuse Project and maybe couldn't make it here to the luncheon?
Yeah, so we are always looking for your financial gifts to Domestic Abuse Project. That's the main way that we can accomplish our work. And we also have lots of needs for volunteering and donations of food for our families. There's lots of in-kind needs of donations as well as monetary needs that we have, and all those things can be found on our website at domesticabuseproject.com. And you can always reach out to any number of the staff who can talk about how we can connect you to making sure the gifts that you have can help benefit ending domestic abuse in our community.
So we just started the Domestic Abuse 101 series with the Domestic Abuse Project podcast. So we're going to get right back into that right after this episode, so people can find out more about the work the Domestic Abuse Project is doing. So just kind of a sneak peek as we kind of get into the holidays here. It's a beautiful fall day in Minneapolis right now, and it's a gorgeous day. But like we said before, it'll be snowing soon. And what are maybe some needs that the Domestic Abuse Project will have, sort of briefly, kind of coming up here, as the holidays approach?
Yeah. So during the holidays, we have our holiday gift program. So we select families from the Children and Women's program who aren't able to afford holiday gifts for their family, and we help match them with an individual or a family who is able to give those gifts. And so that's something that we'll be ramping up probably right after this luncheon. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to hear from you.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Anna, and I guess we'll catch you on the next episode.
Great, see you then.
The Domestic Abuse Project podcast is a production of Podletter Media and the Domestic Abuse Project. Subscribe now on iTunes or Google Play and get involved at domesticabuseproject.org.